So what we're going to be doing today is connecting two hexagons to make pants. So right over here, I've made two hexagons, and these each are a row of 8. And you can tell by this over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I promise you guys, I'm getting my nails done sometime this week. I did not slip knot over here, so I'm going to slip knot by flipping my work, looping the crochet hook through here, looping it through, then doing the slip knot right over here. All right. So my method of connecting these hexagons will seem a little bit funny, but just laugh along if you can. If not, I don't take it personal at all. So what I do is I ensure that I connect the both of them at the same side in which I ended the project. And off the rip, I also ensure that it's the correct side. So the side that seems more popped out is the outer layer, and yeah, so I just ensure that they're both connected at the same. So hexagon. This is going to be the top portion. These are the sides. What I'm going to do is take a hairpin. Hold on. I'm going to take this hairpin over here and just put it through both corners, both flaps. So the first one as well as the second one, that space in between, together. And then I'm going to connect the bottom portion as well with the hairpin as well. The very corner where the gap between the two clusters are. So that is the right side, and this is going to be the left side. What I'm going to do now is make a row of increase on each flap. So, and I also want to mention that I'm going to use another previous pants to reference the size just to make sure that everything's matching up. Hold on. So these are the pants. So I just lay it against this one. And it pretty much is about the same. I just have to increase on the edge at each side. So I'm going to do a time lapse of me increasing. I'm going to increase a row of, I want to say 6 on this side on both flaps, and a row of 6 on both flaps. Now to begin my first row, and of course you're going to notice that they're going to separate. What I'm going to do is just insert the hook right over here. Take this yarn over, and make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now since this is the first chain of my increase, just to secure it a bit, what I tend to do is I take the crochet hook and I loop through the very first hole of the chain and loop through, and then a loop through the 2 over here, right? And make a chain 1. So that's the first chain of the increase of the first row that I'm going to add onto this row. All right. So let's just proceed. I'm going to yarn over and do a cluster of 3 double crochets and chain 1. This is the third one, and then chain 1. Insert your hook in the next gap right over here. Make another cluster of 3 double crochets. Chain 1, and then make another cluster of 3 double crochets. So you're just going to proceed until you get to the very end of the row. However, when we get to the end of the row, we're going to repeat the same method for that very first chain that I made look sturdy like this. So I'm just going to proceed to insert double crochets in chain 1. Now we reach to the very end, right? So just like we did at the first one over here, the very first chain, we're going to repeat the same method. Going to yarn over, insert the hook at the very corner, the hole right in between, loop through 2, your first double crochet. Now you're going to yarn over. You're not going to yarn over. You're going to insert your crochet hook at the very base, the very first hole, and then loop through that chain, loop through 2, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Flip your project, and now we're going to start our second row into 2. So we're going to insert 3 double crochets in this gap here. I'm sorry, 2, because the first one counts as the first one. And then we chain 1, and then insert 3 clusters into each of these, and I'll come back. When we get to the corner, I'll stop there. So just as we started the row with 3 clusters, it's the same way that we're going to end the row. So as you'll notice, each row, it just alternates with single crochet 3 clusters as you increase with each row. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to increase with 6 rows. This now is my second row. I reached the ending of it, and what I'm going to do is, I already chained 1. I'm going to insert the crochet hook into that gap right there, which was at the last previous row. Double crochet. We're going to insert 3 double crochets. All right. And then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. So we ended with 3. We started with 3. On this next row, we're starting with just 1. And we're going to end with 1. And the next row, we're going to start with 3, end with 3. And the next row is going to be 1, end with 1. It just keeps alternating. So I'm going to keep proceeding. I'll come back when I reach to the 6th row. So I've reached the 6th row, and you can tell where you started because you'll see the first one. Technically, this row right here is the first one. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is going to be the 6th row. And as I explained to you before, you alternate on each side. So certain rows, you're starting off with single, 3, single, 3, single, and we're closing out with the 6th one. So this one, since the last one was this, we started off with a single crochet. This one's going to start off with 3 clusters. So each row we alternate between 3 clusters and a single crochet. And this is the 6th row. So we start with 3 clusters and we end with 3 clusters. All right. Okay, and here we go. All right, and we're not going to chain. What we're going to do is just cut our yarn right over here. I pretty much always leave my tails very long. I know, I just like to secure my knots. I like to tie them several times. So, okay, this somehow detached, but don't catch me slipping. Okay. So as you can see here, we increased on this side. We're going to repeat the same thing on this side here. Increase by 6 rows. Repeat the same thing. And we are also going to increase on these 2 sides here that I pinned. Each of them are going to get an increase. So I'm going to do a time. So what I just did now is the row that I increased, I attached them together. But I feel like I moved a little too fast. And I want to show you a slower version of how I'm going to increase on this side again. So I'm going to repeat it one more time. So I'm going to unhook this hairpin, unhook this hairpin, and I'm just going to repeat the same step that I did in the previous side here to increase. So I'm going to take my tail here, loop the crochet hook on one side. We're in between the 2 clusters, that very corner, that gap in between. You are going to loop this through and make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, as I showed you previously, my method of creating a solid, thick, single crochet, I tend to do this trick here where I insert the crochet hook in the very first loop, the first one, the first chain. So I'm going to loop it through. Then there's going to be 2 loops over here, 1, 2, and I'm just going to pull through those 2 loops and chain 1. So this pretty much is my first chain. It just looks extra thick. I don't like the way it looks when it looks like it's holding on to a glyph, so that's why I do that. So that first single crochet looks a little bit thicker. It's not just 1 chain. That's just why I did that. So after I chain 1, I'm going to yarn over, insert 3 double crochets to create 1 cluster, and then chain 1. So create 3 double crochets into each space here. And then just like we repeated, when we get to the end here, I'm going to repeat the same method as I did here, and I'll show you just a bit. All right, so we've reached the very end. So I'm going to insert the last cluster before I create the last chain. So double crochet 1, 2, then 3, then chain 1. And then just like I repeated at the very first one, we are going to double crochet into that very corner in between those 2 clusters, that gap, right? So you see that? Instead of it looking like this, what I'm going to do is insert this crochet hook inside the very first chain, loop through, then loop through those 2, then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now technically, this is 1 chain. We begin with 1 chain, we end with 1 chain. So the next row we're going to increase is going to start with 3 chains, which creates 1 cluster. Now this first chain counts as the first one, so we're going to insert 3 more double crochets. Okay, we're going to insert the double crochet inside that gap right over here. 2, so because the first one counts as 1, 2, and then 3, and then chain 1. And just like the previous row, we're going to insert 3 double crochets in space, each space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each of these are going to get 3 double crochets. All right, and I'm going to meet you at the very end because this part is important too. So now we've reached to the very end here. This is so we started with 3 double crochets. We're going to end with 3 double crochets. So we've reached the very last gap here. I'm going to yarn over, insert 3 double crochets. So it's the first one, it's the second one, and this is the third one. After inserting the third one, we're just going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. So pretty much like I shared in the previous one, we alternate. The first one, which is right here, is 1. The second row we're going to start with 3 and end with 3. The next row is going to be, we're going to start with 1 and end with 1. The next row is going to be 3, end with 3. Start with 1, end with 1. Start with 3, end with 3. So this counts as 1 chain. And as you can tell, I just pretty much like doing this when I'm starting a new row on a granny square project. There's just something about it looking more sturdier. You don't have to do this. It's just my preference because otherwise it just looks like this and it could easily rip or not hold on too tight. So that's the reason why I do this. All right. So like I was saying, this is chain 1. I'm going to insert 3 double crochets into here, into here, into here, and so on. We're going to end with 1 crochet. That last crochet is going to be 1 chain. It's going to be right over here. I'll come back. All right. So we've reached the very last one. We're going to insert just 1 crochet. And it's going to be in between that very gap right there. This is how I pretty much shape the way. You can also insert the double crochet inside of the very first loop, but I personally just insert it right in between there. Okay, so double crochet. So as you see here, 1, 3, 1, and the next row is going to start with 3 double crochets. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Flip your work, yarn over. So this is chain 1. I'm going to insert 2 double crochets inside of that gap right there. So now that becomes 3 double crochets, 1 cluster. And the next gap there's going to get 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, and so on. And the very end is going to get 3 double crochets. All right. The end, I'm going to insert 3 double crochets in that gap right there. Why? Because there's 3 double crochets here. There's a gap indicating that the previous row was ended and started with 1 single chain. So we're going to insert 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now before I jump into the next row, remember, end with 3, start with 3. All right, so this next row is going to be 1 chain, just like the previous row, which was 1. And then we're going to insert 3 double crochets in the next gap, which is right here. We start with 1 double crochet chain, and we're going to end with 1 double crochet chain for this row. And just for reference, this is going to be row 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th row. So the 5th row starts off with 1 double crochet chain. We just inserted the last cluster of 3 double crochets, and we're going to insert our last double crochet inside that gap right there, next to the second to last one. So insert your double crochet inside that gap, and there we go. So this is going to be the final row increase, meaning this is the 6th row, because as I did on the other side, I increased in 6 rows, so therefore I will increase in this row as well as on this side as well as this side. So this is the final row, guys. 1, 2, 3. So the final row is going to start with 3 double crochets and end with 3 double crochets. So insert the double crochet, the crochet hook inside of here.